everyone. Welcome back to Talk English Every Day. I'm Emily, and I'm very happy you're here learning with us today. Smiling softly.
And I'm Romeo. Thank you for spending your time with us. Today's lesson is about something emotional, reflective, and very powerful in English. Gentle tone.
Yes, today we're talking about would have plus past participle.
For example, I would have gone.
I would have called.
I would have tried.
These sentences talk about the past.
But not real past.
They talk about unreal past.
About things that did not happen.
And that makes this structure very emotional. Slowly.
Let's start with a simple situation.
Okay.
Imagine you missed a party,
You say, I would have gone to the party.
but you didn't go.
Exactly.
Maybe you were sick.
Maybe you were busy.
So, would have expresses a different past reality.
A past that was possible but did not happen.
That's the key.
Would have equals imagined past.
Not real past. Gentle tone.
Now let's explore the feeling behind it.
Yes, because this structure often carries regret.
For example, I would have studied harder.
That sounds reflective.
Maybe slightly sad. Sad worry.
Yes, because the action did not happen.
And now you are looking back.
This is very common in life.
We think about what we would have done differently.
That's why this structure is so human. Slowly.
Let's break the structure slowly.
Would plus have plus past participle.
Would have gone.
Would have finished.
Would have called.
The past participle is important,
Not go, not went.
but gone.
For example, I would have went. That is incorrect.
Correct version?
Correct version, I would have gone.
Small detail, big difference. Gentle tone.
Now let's compare real past and unreal past.
Okay?
I went to the meeting.
That happened.
I would have gone to the meeting.
That did not happen.
Maybe the meeting was canceled.
Maybe you were not invited.
So would have needs a condition.
Yes, often hidden or spoken.
For example, I would have helped you if I had known.
That shows two unreal past actions.
If I had known, I would have helped.
This is the third conditional.
But today we focus on feeling and usage, not grammar names.
Yes, feeling first.
Always feeling first. Smiling softly.
Let's practice shadowing slowly.
Repeat after us.
I would have called you.
Good.
I would have finished earlier.
Nice.
I would have tried again.
Feel the regret.
Feel the reflection.
Now say softly.
I would have done better.
That sentence feels emotional,
Yes, because it suggests disappointment.
but it also suggests learning.
Exactly.
This structure often appears in self-reflection.
And in apology.
For example, I would have told you earlier.
That sounds sincere.
Language expresses responsibility.
Before we go deeper, remember something important.
Yes,
Would have is not about future,
it is about imagined past.
about something that was possible but did not happen.
And that is why it feels reflective,
Sometimes regretful?
sometimes thankful.
Yes, thankful too.
For example, I would have failed without your help.
That sounds grateful.
So this structure is not only negative.
It can express appreciation, smiling softly.
Take a slow breath.
Say softly,
I would have gone.
now,
I would have stayed.
now.
I would have changed my decision.
Feel the emotional tone.
You are not just learning grammar,
You are learning how to reflect in English.
and that is powerful communication. Gentle tone. Romeo, now let's go deeper into meaning.
Yes, because would have rarely stands alone.
It usually connects to a condition.
Sometimes the condition is spoken.
Sometimes it is understood.
For example, I would have helped you.
That sentence feels incomplete.
Yes, we want to ask, if what?
Exactly.
I would have helped you if I had known.
Now it feels clear.
You didn't know.
So you didn't help.
This is a past condition that did not happen.
And the result also did not happen.
Let's compare real and unreal again.
Okay,
If I knew, I helped.
that sounds incorrect.
Correct version?
If I had known, I would have helped.
Notice the pattern.
Had plus past participle.
Would have plus past participle.
Two past actions that did not happen.
This structure is often used for regret.
For example, I would have studied harder if I had realized the exam was difficult.
That sounds reflective.
Maybe disappointed.
Yes, but also thoughtful.
Would have allows you to look back and learn.
It shows awareness.
Now let's talk about gratitude.
Yes, because would have is not always negative.
For example, I would have failed without your support.
That sounds thankful.
You did not fail.
Because someone helped you.
So would have expresses a different possible past.
And it highlights appreciation.
Now let's compare would have and could have.
Yes, learners often confuse these two.
I would have called you,
That means you planned or intended to call.
but something stopped you.
Now, I could have called you,
That means you had the ability.
but you did not call.
Sometimes could have sounds like criticism.
Yes, especially in sentences like, you could have told me.
That sounds slightly blaming.
But I would have told you sounds more personal and reflective.
So the difference is intention versus ability.
Very important difference.
Let's explore emotional dialogue.
Okay.
Imagine two friends talking.
One says, I would have gone with you if I had known.
That sounds sincere.
Now the other says, you could have asked me.
That sounds slightly frustrated.
See the emotional shift?
Yes, would have focuses on yourself.
Could have often focuses on what someone failed to do.
Language carries responsibility.
And tone carries emotion.
Now let's practice slow shadowing with contrast.
Repeat after us.
I would have tried harder.
Reflection.
I could have tried harder.
Ability not used.
I would have been there.
Intention.
I could have been there.
Possibility not chosen.
Feel the difference carefully.
Subtle but meaningful.
Now one more. I would have understood if you explained.
That sounds open.
I could have understood if you explained.
That sounds logical, maybe slightly distant.
You are learning emotional nuance.
And that makes your English sound mature.
Now let's take a slow breath.
Take a slow breath.
Say softly.
I would have done better.
Now,
I could have done better.
notice the feeling change.
Small structure.
Big emotional impact.
And we're just getting deeper into it.
Romeo, now let's explore something subtle.
Yes, because would have is not always dramatic.
Sometimes it is polite.
Very polite.
For example, I would have appreciated a message.
That sounds calm but meaningful.
It sounds softer than saying, you should have sent a message.
Yes, that one sounds more direct.
So, would have can soften criticism.
It makes feedback less aggressive.
For example, I would have preferred more notice.
That sounds professional.
And emotionally controlled.
Language choice shapes tone.
Now let's talk about hidden conditions.
Yes, sometimes the if part is not spoken.
For example, I would have gone,
We don't hear the condition.
but we understand it exists.
Maybe it means if I had been invited.
Or, if I had known earlier,
In conversation, people often omit the if clause.
because context makes it clear.
Understanding hidden conditions helps your listening skills.
Let's explore advice in past situations.
Okay.
Imagine a friend failed an exam.
You say, I would have studied more.
That sounds reflective.
But if you say, you should have studied more.
That sounds critical.
So sometimes would have feels more personal,
It focuses on yourself.
not on blaming others.
Tone makes a big difference.
Now let's role play a situation.
Okay.
You forgot a meeting.
Oh no.
Your manager says, I would have appreciated a reminder.
That sounds disappointed but calm.
Now imagine the manager says, you could have reminded me.
That sounds slightly blaming.
See how emotional energy changes?
Yes, subtle but important.
Professional English often prefers softer forms.
Would have often sounds more diplomatic. Now, let's correct common mistakes.
Yes, this is important.
Some learners say, I would have went.
That is incorrect.
Correct version.
I would have gone,
Because after have, we use past participle.
not past simple.
Another mistake. I would went.
Missing have.
Structure must be complete,
Would plus have plus past participle.
clear, and consistent.
Now let's practice emotional contrast.
Repeat after us.
I would have apologized.
Soft reflection.
I could have apologized.
Unused ability.
I should have apologized.
That sounds like regret with responsibility.
Notice the emotional differences.
Would have feels conditional.
Could have feels optional.
Should have feels regretful and corrective.
Small changes, powerful emotional impact.
Let's try a deeper reflection.
Okay,
I would have chosen differently.
that sounds thoughtful.
I could have chosen differently.
That sounds like opportunity was there.
I should have chosen differently.
That sounds like strong regret.
Understanding these layers helps you sound mature.
Not just correct, but emotionally aware.
And emotional awareness builds strong communication.
Take a slow breath.
Say softly,
I would have understood.
now,
I would have listened.
now.
I would have stayed.
Feel the quiet reflection.
This structure is about looking back,
And sometimes growing forward.
and that makes your English deeply human.
Romeo, now let's explore storytelling.
Yes, because would have appears often in personal stories.
When people tell stories, they reflect.
They imagine different outcomes.
For example, if I had left earlier, I would have caught the train.
That sentence feels vivid.
You can imagine the scene,
The train leaving.
the regret.
That's why would have is powerful in storytelling.
It shows an alternative reality.
Now let's try a real-life regret conversation.
Okay.
Friend A says, I missed the opportunity.
Friend B replies, I would have taken it if I were you.
That sounds like advice in the past.
Yes, imagining a different choice.
Now imagine this conversation.
One person says, I didn't call her.
The other says, I would have called.
That sounds reflective, not attacking.
Compare that to, you should have called.
That sounds more critical.
Tone changes emotion.
Now let's compare might have, could have, and would have.
Yes, this is advanced nuance.
I might have forgotten.
That sounds uncertain.
I could have forgotten.
That sounds possible, logical.
I would have forgotten.
That sounds conditional.
Yes, it needs context.
For example, I would have forgotten if you hadn't reminded me.
That sounds clear.
So, would have often depends on a condition.
Might have expresses uncertainty.
Could have expresses possible ability.
3 similar forms, 3 different emotional meanings.
Now let's explore apology.
Yes, would have is common in apologies.
For example, I would have told you sooner.
That sounds sincere,
It shows intention.
but something prevented action.
Now compare, I could have told you sooner.
That sounds like you had the ability but didn't act.
And I should have told you sooner.
That sounds regretful and responsible,
Understanding this helps you choose the right tone.
especially in sensitive conversations.
Now let's practice storytelling shadowing.
Repeat after us.
If I had known the truth, I would have acted differently.
Good.
If I had tried harder, I would have succeeded.
Feel the reflection.
If you hadn't helped me, I would have failed.
That sounds grateful.
Now with contrast.
I might have made a mistake.
Uncertain.
I could have made a mistake.
Possible.
I would have made a mistake if you hadn't warned me.
Conditional and clear.
Feel the emotional layering.
This is advanced English.
Let's reflect quietly.
Would have looks back.
It imagines different outcomes.
It often carries regret.
Sometimes gratitude,
Sometimes apology.
sometimes reflection.
When you use it correctly, your English sounds thoughtful.
Not mechanical,
Not basic.
but mature.
Take a slow breath.
Say softly,
I would have chosen differently.
now,
I would have stayed.
now.
I would have said yes.
Feel the quiet reflection in those sentences.
English allows you to reflect on life.
And that makes your communication powerful.
You are not just speaking,
You are expressing perspective.
and that perspective builds fluency.
Romeo, after everything we explored today, I feel reflective.
Yes, this structure makes you think about life.
Because would have is not only grammar.
It is memory.
It is regret.
It is gratitude.
It is imagination.
It is perspective.
Let's summarize calmly.
Would have talks about an unreal past.
A different past that did not happen.
It often connects to a condition.
Sometimes the condition is spoken.
Sometimes it is hidden.
For example, I would have gone.
Hidden condition.
I would have gone if I had known.
Spoken condition.
Both are correct.
Both show imagined reality.
Now let's reflect on emotion one last time.
Okay,
I would have tried harder.
that feels thoughtful.
I could have tried harder.
That feels like unused ability.
I should have tried harder.
That feels regretful and corrective.
Understanding these differences makes your English emotionally intelligent,
And emotionally intelligent English sounds mature,
not robotic,
not simple.
but reflective and natural.
Let's do one final slow shadowing round.
Repeat after us.
If I had prepared more, I would have succeeded.
Good.
If you hadn't helped me, I would have failed.
Feel the gratitude.
I would have apologized if I had realized the mistake.
That sounds sincere.
Now, one more.
I would have chosen differently.
That sentence carries quiet reflection,
Reflection shows growth.
and growth builds confidence.
Remember something important.
Yes,
You cannot change the past.
but you can talk about it clearly.
And when you can express regret, gratitude, and reflection in English,
Your communication becomes powerful.
you're not just describing events.
You are expressing perspective.
And perspective is advanced fluency.
Today, you practiced more than grammar.
You practiced emotional expression.
And that is real English.
Take one last slow breath.
Say softly,
I would have learned.
now,
I would have grown.
now.
I will grow.
That one feels different.
Yes, because it is about the future.
And your English future looks bright.
We'll see you next time on Talk English Every Day. Take care, everyone.
Bye for now.